Hi, and welcome back to Glassboxed, writing automated JavaScripts. Today we are going to take a more detailed look at assertions. We will look at what assertions are, how we use assertions in JUnit, and how we use assertions with WebDriver. So first things first, what is an assertion? An assertion is, in its simplest form, a check to see if something is true or false, and nothing in between. For instance, is the current time AM or PM? If I'm driving, is my current speed above 50 miles per hour or not? Is it currently raining? These are all good examples of whether something at this present time is true or false. And we can use these checks or assertions in our tests to check whether something is true or false based on how the test is going. Naturally, if the test gives us expected results, then the test carries on, and if it doesn't, then the test fails there and then. So before we actually try and use assertions with our WebDriver, let's just take a quick look at the assertions themselves which JUnit provides us with. So really quickly, I've just written this really bare bones test, JUnit test, which has a before and after and a test. I've commented out the WebDriver stuff because I don't want to really run WebDriver, not just yet anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the asset methods, which are provided by JUnit, and to access the assert methods, you can access them via the assert class. What I've done is I've just imported in the class in, which means you don't really have to do this. If you do a static import, you can just directly navigate to the assert methods. So if I just do assert, then these are all the assertion methods that JUnit provides us with, and as you can see, there's a lot. Some of them are repeated because they take different parameters. The reason they take different parameters is because this particular method has been overloaded. If you want to know what overloaded is, just put in a comment. I'll explain it. Otherwise, I'll assume that everyone knows what method overloading is. But anyway, taking a step back. So these are all the methods, assertion methods that JUnit provides, and I'll pick a few and we'll go through them, and not go through all of them, because I think if we just go through a few of them, that would actually give us enough details on how the rest work, because they fundamentally are identical in what they do. It's just there's a few things that differentiates them in how they do what they do. So if we just take a look at one of the most commonly used ones in the JUnit library, is the AssetTrue method. Right, so what does the AssetTrue method do? It basically takes in a Boolean condition, and then it gives us the result of the Boolean condition, and based on the result, the assertion will either pass or it will fail. So let me just write this out really quickly so that I can explain it. Right. So what's happening here? So here we've got an assert method. So it's an assert method, and this assert is expecting something to be true. That's the key kind of mechanics of this particular assertion method, and it's taken in a Boolean condition. So here what I'm saying is 1 is equal to 1, which is true, and because this returns a true, and this assertion method is expecting a result of true from the Boolean condition, this assertion will pass. And that's effectively how this particular assertion works. If you take a look at its mirror, which is assert false, this assert is expecting its condition to be equal to false. So if we look at the condition that we're providing it with, 1 equals 1, this will actually return us a value of true, but this assertion is expecting a result of false. So this assertion will actually fail if we did something like this. Now we're saying 1 is equals to true. In reality 1 is not equal to true, so this would return a false. And as this assertion is expecting a result of false, this would then pass. It can sound a little confusing, but what you've got to remember is false doesn't mean a bad thing. False is just a result. That's what you kind of have to wrap your head around. Assertions isn't about something has to be true or something has to be false. We're more interested in the result of something, not whether the result is a positive result or a negative result. Sometimes it is important that we get negative results for various things. For instance, if you're trying to test that someone is unable to submit a form because they didn't provide their postcode correctly, you'd want to make sure that the postcode field returns a false result, i.e. an invalid postcode. So there are various places where false is actually the required result. Anyway, going forward, let's take a look at a couple other assertions. So the next one I think we should take a look at is probably the equals. Right? Equals. So what the equals does is it takes two different objects and it tries to see if those two objects are the same. So if I did something like this, what this means is the first object equal to the second object? In other words, is this the same as this in terms of value? They are. A character of A is equal to a character of A, so this would pass. So this is checking to see if two things are equal. Is similar to this in that this is expecting something to be true, but this is just expecting two things to be the same. We've obviously got its reflect as well, so if I just quickly copy it and pasted that, this would now fail because this assertion mechanism is expecting the two objects that we provided to not be the same. So at the moment A is the same as A, but this is expecting the two objects to not be the same, so this would fail. To pass this, if I just did this, this would now pass because these two are not equal to each other, therefore this assertion would pass. We can do various other things. We can assert if something is null, so for instance we can do something like this. So if I just did really quickly string this is null, put that in there. Oh, it's telling me to initialize. Okay, I'll just right. What this is now doing is this assertion method is checking to see that something is not null. This, however, is null at the moment. So when we run this, this will fail because this is expecting the result of something to be not null, but this is null. So since I know this is going to fail, if I just did something like that, doesn't really matter. Anything, I suppose, is fine. Asda. Not null. This will now pass. So these are kind of some of the assertions we can use, and if you can just wrap your head around this is expecting something to be true, therefore the condition needs to be true for this to pass, or this is expecting two objects to be equals, or this is expecting something to be not null. If we just kind of just understand that, and then when we look at all of these things, they almost instantly make sense to us. So if we just pick something like I don't know, something like this. So I'm trying to find one I haven't actually used. So same. So this, even though we haven't used it, sounds similar to the assert equals, but it operates in a different manner. So this is operating more on a value level, whereas this is operating more on an object level. But the mechanics is still the same. This assert same is expecting two objects to be exactly the same. This assert equals is expecting the outcome of two objects to be exactly the same. And that's really it when it comes to assertions. As long as you can kind of grasp this basic understanding, you can kind of take this understanding to the next level and then apply these asserts in our code. So if I were to just run this test now really quickly, there you go. It's almost instantaneous. Well, that looks like no time was wasted on it at all, because these all pass. So if I now fail some of them on purpose, so if I fail this, and I do this, there, red, and it's saying value should be different, actual is A. In other words, this is saying these two values should have been different, but they're not. Right. So what we're going to do now is, actually, let me keep this in there for reference, if you like, just to kind of be able to refer to them. What we're going to do is we're actually going to use WebDriver, and we're going to write a test and then use some of these assertions in the test. So the test I'm going to write is, I'm going to navigate to the home page, so here, then I'm going to click on contact. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to populate these fields. So let's just put in anything at the moment, and I'm going to press send, and then I'm going to come to this page, and I'm just going to confirm, and I'm going to write this test, and then I'm going to do some assertions along the way. Right, so let's begin. Right, so the first thing we're going to do is get our WebDriver back again, since we need it now. I was going to keep this in, but let's remove it. Right. So the first thing we're going to do is, since we're already on the index page, we need to go to the contact page. So if we just do driver dot find element by ID contact link dot click. So what this will do is this will click on our contact link. Now what we need to do is we need to populate each one of these fields. So we can use the name attribute on each of these fields. So if we just quickly look at the page source, view page source, here we go. So the name field is called name, the address is address, postcode is postcode, email is email, and the button has an ID of submit message. Right, so let's use this to populate our form. What I want to do is, because I don't want to kind of write each of these find elements for each of the form fields that I have, I'm just going to write a really quick method to kind of help me along the way. So I'm just going to write a public void type is pretty fine, by, which is going to be our locator, and the value we want to send to the field. So let's just say value. What we want to say, driver dot find elements by send keys value. This is just gonna help us speed things up a bit. So type by name, and I think it was a name of name field, and let's just say we're gonna give it a value of test name. There you go. This was address, this was postcode, this was email, test address, test field, test email, and then we need to click on the button. In fact, why not? Let's do the same thing for the button as well. Public void click. So what was it? Submit message, was it? Right. So I've just written these really two quick methods to stop me from having to write all of this again and again. One of the kind of core principles of writing code, regardless of whether it's for a test or application or anything, is to reduce repetition as much as possible. It's one of the fundamental opinions, really, is that you try and repeat code as less as possible to make things a little bit more readable. So by here, again, this is probably deviating from what we're trying to achieve here, but just really quickly, I've just written a click method which clicks on anything I pass it via a locator, so I don't have to write anything. And if someone's reading this test, they just be able to read the name of the test and actually look at the test. So they know the first thing is something is supposed to click on something, then type, and then click. Right, anyway, back to the point in hand. So let's actually run this test and see if it works. I just want to make sure it's actually working before I try and jump into writing assertions around it. So it's just starting up. Let's see what happens. So it still loading. So it goes to contact. Whoa, what do you know? There's a first time for everything. Yeah, so it worked, which is perfect. So what we're going to do now is we're going to actually write some assertions around it to make sure that this flow is working. So when I say flow, what I mean is, let's just say you're kind of constantly adding more and more features to your website, and you want to make sure the basic stuff that used to work still works. So this test that we're going to write is just to make sure that this contact form still works. So if I just well, let's not write asda again. Just go test and send. We just want to make sure that this flow works, and that's all we're doing. And we're just going to do a few checks along the way as well. So the first thing we're going to do is, well, why don't we assert? Because we go to the index page because of this by default, and then we click on the contact link page. A good assert would be to check that we are on the right page, and I think the AssetTrue is probably a good candidate for this. What we can do is, when we navigate to the contact page, let's just check that the page title, i.e. the title on the tab, is what we expect it to be. So we just say AssetTrue, let's just say driver.get title dot equals contact. Right. So these two lines of code already give our test a lot of value, in that we are going to a page and then we are checking that we are definitely on that page. Unless if you have other pages which have the title of equals, this will only pass if you are on that page, otherwise it would never pass, right? Okay, so let's add in an assertion here as well, because we're populating data. Let's just make sure that we've definitely populated data. So one thing I can do is, well, let me quickly think about it. How can we check that we've got data in this in the fields? Well, one thing we can do is we can just get the data of, so once we've typed something in, for instance, we can just get we can check to see if the contents of this field are empty or not. So if we were to, let's say, type something in and we checked, is this empty or not? If it is empty, that means we haven't typed anything in, which means something's gone wrong somewhere. So we can at least assert on that level. So let's do that. And what would be a good candidate? Well, the assert false is probably a good candidate, right? So let's work this out. So let's just say driver dot get no, let's do driver dot find elements. Sorry, find element by name, and we'll use this first one. So we'll only use the name field for the moment, and let's just say get text let's see, is there, here we go, is empty. So what this is doing is basically saying get the name field and get the text inside it, and is it empty? So what that basically means is the field empty? If it's empty, then give a true, otherwise give a false. So this will return us a true, but we're expecting the result to be false. So in other words, this would actually fail. So what we need to do is basically say, is it not empty? That's what we want to say. So is the field not empty? So this is not empty isn't really provided. We don't really, it doesn't exist. I don't think it does anyway. Let me just quickly check. No, it doesn't exist. So we can just use the apostrophe to mark it as a reverse. So what this basically means is whatever the result of this returned as, effectively flip it around. What we're saying is the field empty? But we want it to be, we want this to say is not empty, but is not empty isn't. That method isn't given to us unless if we write it ourselves. We just don't have that method. So to kind of reverse this, we're just applying this apostrophe here. Just for good measures, if we put it in brackets, we're just kind of cleanly saying do everything in here and then reverse it. So now this should give us a false, because what this now means is the field should not be empty, and it should satisfy this assertion here. Let's use one more assertion, because we do go to the confirmation page, I think. So we send it and then we go here, right? So this contact confirmation page, which again, this particular title doesn't exist anywhere else other than on this page. So let's use this on another assertion. So we can do assert. So what's a good candidate for this one? We can use true, but let's use a different one to just effectively show the difference. Yeah, alright, equals is probably a good one. So let's say right, let's say driver dot get title, and we're expecting the title to be contact confirmation. Right. So if we now run the test, it should pass. What's going to happen is going to say assert. So go to the contact page and make sure we're on the right page by looking at the title. Fill in the form, and then make sure that the name field isn't empty, which is to prove that we can type something into the field. Press the submit button, which should take us to the contact confirmation page, and then check that the page, that we are indeed on that page by checking the title of the page. So if we were to run this, let's see what happens. So alright, so it's fired up, it's gone to the contact, it's filled in the form, it's pressed send, and there you go. So it's passed, which means our assertions pass, which is good. But you know what, let's prove that it also works if it was to fail. So let's just say the contact confirmation page actually changed to something else. So let's just say changed to I don't know, let's just put in an X. This is just to forcefully fail our test. And I'm going to run the test now as well. So what should happen is it should do everything fine, but on the last assertion it should fail. So it's done everything, and boom, it's failed. So if you have a look here at the actual message, right? So what it's saying is it expected to find contact confirmation, but it was instead given contact confirmation X. So what that means is it's basically saying, hey, you asked me to find this, and when I found it, you expected it to match this, but it didn't. So it failed, which is good, because to us it says that that this wasn't confirmed. So what does that actually mean? What that means is when we're running our test, let's just say you've put in a bunch of code somewhere and your test says it expected to be on a certain page but it wasn't. it could mean more than one thing. It could mean that the title of the page changed. It could mean that we don't end up on the page we expected it to be, but ultimately it means that something has changed somewhere which we didn't expect to change, which is why assertions are incredibly powerful. If we were to do something like this, for instance, so now we're going to fill this on purpose. So what we're saying here is we expect the field to be empty. We're just going to return true, but obviously we're expecting it to be false, i.e. we're expecting the field to be not empty. So if we run the test now, what should happen is it should fail halfway through the test. So it's gone to the contact page, filled in the form, and didn't even submit the form because it's failed. If we go here, what we find out is it's failed here because the field was empty. There's another thing that assertion provides. So if you look at this assertion here, it's just says assertion, and it says that this means a lot to someone who understands testing. But if you want to kind of print out clean code, you've got various kind of options. One is to use different testing libraries, such as Hamcrest libraries, who can provide you with more meaningful information when something fails. But you also have the option of actually writing in the code yourself. So what happens is, let's just say this fails. At the moment, we get information, but nothing that makes a lot of sense to us. What we can do is pump out specific information instead. So and you can do this by providing a string as part of the assertion. So almost every assertion actually takes in a string as a very first parameter, and this string will print out if the assertion fails. So if we put in a string here and we say something along the lines was field was empty, and we run this, instead of getting that error error, which may or may not make sense to someone, we should now get the string that we specifically typed in. And there you go. We now get this field was empty. So this would probably make more sense than nothing at all, or even that. It just gives us a little more information to work with. So if I put the apostrophe back in and change that and put in a message here now. Let's just say this says page title was not expected. Right, so what we're saying now is this should now pass again because we've put in the fix for it. So what should happen now is when this assertion runs, the final assertion, these two will not are not the same, and we should get an error with this particular string or this particular additional information. So we've just run the test, and right, so it's gone to the contact page again, fill the form, submit, and bang, filled. Right, now if you have a look, it's still given us the previous information. This is what I got. I got contact information, but I was expecting it to match contact confirmation X, and it didn't. But it's also provided us with our additional information, i.e. page title was not expected. So we aren't kind of stuck with whatever information JUnit provides us with through its assertion methods. We can by all means add in more information ourselves if you want. There's nothing stopping you from doing that, and you can add in these additional kind of failure messages to almost any assertion. In fact, I think you can add them to all assertion methods, which makes it pretty powerful in itself. And that's it. If you have any questions, then please leave a comment below, and if you enjoy my videos on writing automated scripts, then yeah, please subscribe. But until next time, ciao, thanks again, bye.